What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here to talk to you about a book. Today I'm taking a little bit of a break from Castle Gormenghast to talk to you about The United States of Cryptids by J.W. Ocker. This book is exactly what it sounds like. It is a guide to animals and creatures that might possibly exist in the United States, and depending on what your mindset is, you're like Mulder, you want to believe, or you're like Scully and you don't believe. This was really interesting. I wouldn't necessarily call it a cover-to-cover read, but if you are into this kind of thing, I would say you almost certainly would want to have this on your shelf. What it does, it divides the United States, and this includes Alaska and Hawaii also, but it divides the United States into four sections. You've got the Northeast, the Southeast, and then the Midwest, and then the West. And then within each section, you have cryptids that are said to have been seen in each state. And it doesn't devote a whole lot of time to any given cryptid. So if you are a really big fan of the snallygaster that is said to have been seen in Maryland, you're only going to get about 3 pages devoted to the snallygaster. So if you want something a little bit more in-depth about one of the cryptids that you're interested in, this may not be the book for you. This is, I would say, a really good beginner's guide to cryptids all over the United States. If you don't really know much about any cryptids, this covers a lot of the basics about just about everything, but it doesn't get super in-depth about anything, which is fine. This book is over 280 pages long, and Ocker had to research a lot of cryptids in order to write this book and have it be as complete as it is. So he probably didn't have the time or resources to devote, 35 pages to every Bigfoot sighting. So if that's something you're interested in, you could use this as a starting place, but then you probably would want to go and look at something else. And fortunately for you, at the back of the book, there is further reading of about 1.5 pages, and so it talks about Lizard Man, the true story of the Bishopville Monster, which was written in 2013. So there is this whole little category here of, I'm assuming, resources that Ocker used when researching this book. Or maybe Ocker is just really passionate about cryptids and was already a fan of these books, and maybe he did use these resources, but maybe he's just saying, if you like this kind of thing, here's some more. And I do appreciate that. Cryptids, I won't say they're necessarily something I'm super passionate about. When I was a kid, I was more of a Mulder. I wanted to believe that the Loch Ness Monster was real. I thought, yeah, maybe there's a Bigfoot out there somewhere. Now, I don't know if I necessarily believe in any of that, but it's still fun to look at some of this. And for example, it talks about somewhere in the South, I don't remember where, I don't think it was Louisiana, but somewhere down there, it talked about the moon-eyed people, and it talked about how whatever native people lived in that area, they had a legend, by the time the European settlers were coming into that area, they had a legend of these pale creatures that only came out at night because the sun hurt their eyes, and they had very large eyes, hence the name moon-eyed people. The book is saying that was probably Welsh settlers who came in before the mass influx of other European settlers. And this mentions that when the Lewis and Clark expedition began, that someone, might have been Andrew Jackson, I can't remember, and I'm not going to look for it to find it, it said, you know what, I will, because at the beginning it has a list of all the creatures. So, sorry. This is, yes, Moon-Eyed People, page 107. That's another thing. If you have this book on hand, and then you want to look up something about a particular cryptid, you don't have time to go through the whole book, you can go at the index at the beginning. That's really handy. So the Moon-Eyed People were said to have lived in North Carolina. The Lewis and Clark expedition, it was Thomas Jefferson who specifically asked Lewis and Clark in a letter to keep an eye out for Welsh Indians. So I'm not sure how or when a group of Welsh people came to the continental United States, and there were legends about them before the Lewis and Clark expedition. I don't know how and when or the specifics on that, or if that's even likely, but this book is saying in that case the Moon-Eyed People, basically white people, people was probably the Welsh. And it does make a point of saying, you know, the Welsh, they actually can go out in the sun, so we're not really sure where that part of the folklore came from. But that's interesting. Now, this does not go out of its way to debunk very many of these. In fact, I think the Moonite people is the only one of the only ones where it says this is very likely where this legend came from. A lot of these, you'll be like the Jersey Devil, and it doesn't say, well, this person probably saw a kangaroo or something. You know, it doesn't say anything like that. And I know kangaroos are not native to America, but I've seen other books before where it will mention a sea serpent seen in the early 1600s, and then the book will say, well, this guy, you know, probably saw this kind of creature, which is scientifically, if you are much more into the science of it, then you're probably going to appreciate that. If you're much more into the weird, and you kind of like there being a little bit of mystery in the world, it's a little disheartening when you're reading a book about this kind of thing, and then every page of the book is shooting down any mystery of, well, maybe there is a Mothman in Virginia. It's shooting all that down, saying it was probably a sandhill crane or something like that. So I like that this book, it leaves a little bit to your imagination, where if you are into this kind of thing, you can still be into this kind of thing, and you're not going to come away from it jaded and you don't believe anymore. At one point it even talks about that, like if there is some scientific evidence that supports that there was a really giant bird out west, the Piazza bird is one that it talks about from legends from prehistory. If suddenly someone says, we just found the fossil of a bird with a 50-foot wingspan, and so the Piazza bird definitely existed. This talks about how that is a cryptozoologist's worst nightmare, because then it removes the crypto part of cryptozoology, and then it just makes that a regular animal. And then it makes it less interesting for people who enjoy researching this kind of thing. And maybe they're like Mulder, they want to believe, but they don't necessarily want any real scientific proof that there is a Bigfoot or Champy, who is the American version of the Loch Ness Monster. They don't necessarily want proof. They just like the idea, maybe there's something out there, and that's good enough for them. And so this book doesn't go out of its way to try and tell a bunch of children that Santa doesn't exist, and I kind of appreciated that, because myself, I don't really have a dog in this fight anymore. I don't often go researching this kind of thing. I was researching this for a very specific reason, but most of the time I don't really read into this kind of thing, so I don't still have an interest in the werewolf in the 1930s who said the word Gadara. I find that interesting, but I don't necessarily want those things or need those things to be true. But as a child, I did think, well, maybe the Loch Ness Monster is real. I kind of hope that it is, and stuff like that. So I kind of appreciate that Ocker is, he's kind of, you know, doing the nod and the toast to all the cryptozoologists out there. He may not be one, I don't know. He did a lot of research for this, but I don't necessarily know if he is a believer himself. But he, at the very least, is not being a jerk to people who are believers. So that is all. I talked a lot more about this than I thought I would. But that's all I have to say about the United States of Cryptids. I enjoyed this book. If your local library has it, I recommend checking it out. It's a pretty new publication. I think it just came out maybe last year. I got mine from my local library. But that's about all I have to say about this book. I hope you guys like this one. And I will see you guys in the future with something else. In the meantime, have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.